Excellent. Well, let me start with two unplanned things. The first was to answer the question about Dartmouth. I think the simple answer is it is just bloody cold at Dartmouth. Those of you who have not been there, it's 2 hours north of the nearest city, Boston, Massachusetts. The first snowfall in my freshman year was on September 30th, and this is Northern Hemisphere, of course. So you have 4 years where you've got nothing to do but make friends and drink. And that then gives you good relationships, and it gives you Animal House as well. When you talk a little bit about the Dubai effect, it's just interesting reflecting on living in Singapore, where Mandarin is one of the official languages in the country. There's no capital gains tax, there's no property tax, and it's a 5-hour flight from Shanghai as opposed to a longer flight to get down to Australia. So it will be interesting to see, as this continues to unfold, what parts of the region end up attracting all that capital. I can just tell you, on a Sunday in Singapore, you sit on Orchard Road and you watch Ferrari, Maserati go past again and again. And if you've ever been to Singapore, there's no reason to have a car like this, as you can't use it at all. It's just showing off well. Anyway, I've had a great time here over the past couple days. I only have one disappointment thus far. That is, I have only got 17 new followers on Twitter. I was hoping that by putting my tag up there and saying it in front of this group, I would get more by the end of the day here. I'm maybe a little disappointed that the book On the Fly had a much longer line at the book signing than mine. Obviously, I picked the wrong field to go into. But anyway, I'm going to talk about innovation lessons from Asia and driving growth in emerging markets. This is a massive picture of me. This is me in our office in Singapore. You can see the iconic Marina Bay Sands building behind me. I picked myself up and my family up 2.5 years ago to move out to Singapore. At the time, it was my wife and 2 young kids. We have a 3rd kid now, fully manufactured in Singapore. Why did I do this? It was quite simple. I'm in the innovation game. I wanted to be where I thought the action would be. Certainly, if you look over the past 100 years, that would be in the United States, Western Europe, markets like Australia, but you could just feel the energy taking place in the markets that surround me. And over the course of the past 2.5 years, I've gone to India, China, Philippines, Thailand, a collective 60 times, and gotten to touch those markets, work with companies trying to get in those markets, work with companies in those markets. And what I wanted to do for the bulk of my presentation here was share some of the lessons that I've learned about what it takes to succeed in emerging markets. So I have pictured up here a number of case examples of companies, both outside and inside those markets, that have succeeded. And what I'd like to do is share 5 key lessons that I see that connects these examples. Here's the first one. If you want to succeed in emerging markets, you have to go native. That is, you have to invest the time to truly understand the market you're trying to target. John Deere, the US-based tractor company, understood this. It was getting crushed in India by Mahindra and Mahindra. It tried to launch products that were designed in the US, and it just didn't work. So they followed a different approach, where they took some of their best scientists and salespeople, everyone awake? They took some of their best scientists, some of their best developers, brought them to India, spent time with more than 7,000 prospective customers to truly understand the fabric of the market. These markets are different. You have to go in there and deep in there. You don't really learn about these markets if you fly off a nice airline, get off your plane, get in a nice car, go to a 6-star hotel, stay in a conference room. You can do that anywhere in the world. You have to really get out and touch and feel the marketplace. This is true for companies based in these markets as well. The picture on the top part of the screen there is a refrigerator introduced by an Indian company called Godrej and Boyce. This is a refrigerator designed to reach the 80% of Indians that do not participate in the category. These were not customers that Godrej, that has been in the market for more than 100 years, knew and understood. So it had to invest the time to get out of its conference rooms into the market. That's the first key. You have to invest the time to truly get underneath the skin of the target market. Second, and I stole this phrase shamelessly from Procter & Gamble, delight, not dilute. One of the first tendencies that companies trying to target emerging markets have is let's just strip out performance, get price points lower, and this is what we will use to compete. Rarely works. A couple decades ago, Procter & Gamble tried this with its Pampers line of diapers in China. They introduced a not very good diaper, nappy, sorry, the US comes out. They introduced a not very good product that didn't have good absorbency, that had skin irritation problems, and so on. Their effort was to try to drive conversion from cloth diapers to disposable diapers. The thought was, we're going to give people the same benefit that you get in developed markets, which is we're going to give them daytime convenience. Well, they learned that the Chinese already had a solution to this. From the age of about 6 months, parents put their kids in these pants called kaidanku that have a split in the backside. So when the kid has to go, they just go outside and let it fly. About a decade ago, Procter & Gamble said, let's take another go at it. Let's try to understand a problem that is not well solved. Daytime convenience, maybe we can't address that, but there's a big problem in the nighttime. Let's design something that will delight the consumer because it will give the mother and the child a reliable night's sleep. Introduced a product and an entire campaign around the golden sleep offering and took over the category, framing not just how we take what already exists and strip things out, but how do we design something that is special purpose for the unique need we see in this industry. Third key to success, it is not just new products, not just new services, but new business models that are required to succeed, new ways to create, capture, and deliver value. If you look on the top part of your screen, you will see a truck there. You might be surprised to know that this is part of an offering by a medical device manufacturer named Medtronic. Medtronic was trying to increase sales of its pacemaker product. India has more heart disease than any country in the world, but almost no penetration of this product. It costs $1,000 US. India is largely an out-of-pocket pay market, which meant people couldn't afford it. There isn't great primary care in India either, so people didn't even know that they had conditions that warranted a pacemaker. So what did Medtronic do? Well, they went out and screened people, organized camps in rural areas where they'd see 300 to 400 people in an afternoon to understand if they had conditions that warranted this device. They did direct-to-consumer marketing, and most importantly, they developed the world's first financing program for an implantable medical device. Think about this for a second. If you take out a loan for a car and you don't pay that loan back, they come and take your car back. You take out a loan for a device that gets implanted near your heart and you don't pay that loan back, it's a little tougher to recover. Medtronic has been doing this now for 2 years and still in limited pilots, and they have had a grand total of 0 defaults, borrowing good ideas from microfinancing, community-based lending, and so on, driving good adoption of the program. There's no new technology here. There are new ways to sell, distribute, to market, to pay for the particular product. And this is what's required to succeed in these markets. Fourth, you have to build ecosystems. These markets can be very complex in which to operate. It's hard for any individual company to do it on their own, particularly if you're targeting a problem like the product on the bottom of the page, trying to bring clean water ultimately to 500 million people around the world who can't access it, whose best solution today is to boil water, which takes a lot of time, consumes energy, and has some other downsides as well. Hindustan Unilever is trying to crack this with the Pureit product pictured here. They're not doing it on their own. Yuri Jain, who has led this effort, started it with a team of about 3 people. He said when you're trying to address a problem that affects 500 million people with a team of 3, you have no choice but to look for outside people who can help you. Non-government organizations that can help drive this product to schools to promote health in children. People who can help women in villages pool finances so they can get something to improve the health of their children. A lack of access to clean water is one of the biggest problems in emerging markets, and by building an ecosystem, Hindustan Unilever has come up with an innovative way to solve the problem. Finally, local autonomy. Historically, particularly companies based out of these markets, they looked at their operations in these markets as places that would distribute things that were developed overseas. B.J. Govindarajan coined a great term for what's going on now, reverse innovation, where increasingly you're seeing organizations asking their local branches to innovate, coming up with market-appropriate products that ultimately could go back into more developed markets. General Electric on the top part of the page has done a great job of this, but I wanted to highlight in the middle part of the page Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. If you go to a KFC in China, you will not see things that you would see if you went to a KFC in any other part of the world. This is, for example, an egg tart that you might enjoy for breakfast. Well, I don't enjoy it for breakfast, but one might enjoy that for breakfast. KFC has given its local organization a huge amount of autonomy, and it's allowed it to succeed. So those are my 5 tips: going native, delight, don't dilute, new business models, build ecosystems, and embrace local autonomy. One more thing I wanted to talk about. What about the next wave of disruption, the next wave of growth? What about the real game changers? I came out to Asia because I believe this is where the action was going to be. And there's disruption that's taking root all around the world economy. There are more examples than the 6 that I put up here, but these are at least a few things going on. Personalized production, 3D printing. You can now go to a kiosk and get a mold made of your head. I don't know why you would do that, but you can. Mass fractionalization, collective consumption, Airbnb. You can couch surf and rent a room from someone who's out of town. Anywhere, anytime education, massive online open colleges. Coursera platform is now enrolling 70,000 new students a week who are getting great education from professors at Harvard, Stanford, and other schools. Micro healthcare, first warning systems, has a technology in this brassiere where it can detect breast cancer earlier than any other test. Other ways to bring healthcare to more personal levels. The Internet of Things. Hewlett-Packard is working on a technology that it believes will be the nervous system of the planet. Sensors all over the place that can tell you when things are happening. Finally, scientific management, so-called big data. As computational power goes up, as we're able to sense more things, how do we sense or spot the true signal in what can be a huge amount of noise? Companies like Mu Sigma and others are going after this opportunity. Here's the interesting thing. The 6 things that I've highlighted here are all taking place, again, in the United States. The game changers, the people who are really revolutionizing industries, I just don't see them out in Asia yet. So the question that I've been asking myself over the past couple years is why? There are 3 things that I think are standing in the way of Asia driving the next round of true disruption and industry creation. One is failure tolerance. Of course, this is very well characterized in the West Coast of the United States and Silicon Valley, but in many places that I go in Asia, there are real stigmas around failure. People worry about taking risks. Parents aren't happy when their children do things that appear to have risk around them. The reality is failure is often a necessary step on the path to success. You talk to most venture capitalists and they're happy to invest in someone that has been part of a failed venture, as long, of course, as they learn from their failure. There needs to be more failure tolerance in Asia, systems that support this as well. Hierarchy. I remember this one memorable meeting in Singapore. I was in the same room, but I actually sat through 3 different meetings. First was the meeting with all the young people in it, a vibrant meeting. Everyone's disagreeing with each other. Middle management comes in. Everyone starts to get a little bit quieter. The boss comes in. The people who had all the passion sit on their hands and shut up. Talking to a person afterwards who was working on an idea, we talked about the idea. We agreed it was a terrible idea. I said, so you're going to tell your boss not to do it, right? And he said, no, we're still going to do it. I said, why? He said, boss likes it. Not good enough. We have to go beyond boss likes it. Great ideas come from anywhere. Finally, humility. This is a weird one to put up because there is a notion of Asia being a very humble sort of place. But many of the companies I've seen in China, India, and markets like this, the companies that have become great companies have been on an executional tear over the past few decades. And they really believe in themselves. But what have they done? They've leveraged the resources that were in their grounds. They borrowed ideas from other places and took advantage of lower factor costs to succeed. That's great, but that is not sufficient given the pace of change in the world today. leaders have to have a dose of humility if they are to drive transformation and lead the next round of industry development. I'll end by quoting something that if you heard me over lunch, I apologize for repeating myself. The last thing that I'll say is I stand right now remembering Amara's law, which is we tend to overestimate the effect of change in the short run and underestimate it in the long run. I still believe in Asia. I'm happy being out here. My family's happy being out here. But I think the Asian century, we're not going to feel the full force of it as soon as people think. But when it comes, when it truly comes, when the demographics of having 3 billion people roughly in India and China really come to force, my goodness, is the world going to change. Thank you very much.